person. It's okay, I was told that I can just imagine you all in your underwear and it'll be all better. But I don't know if that'll work because my grandparents are right there, so. Yeah, so my name is Lucas Sherman and I'm a 17-year-old high school senior from up in Seattle. And my story really begins well before I was even a concept of reality. So on June 26, 1984, my mom, Darby Ann Binder, was driving down in her 1980 Datsun 210 on the highway. And she was going 60 miles per hour, and it was a 2-lane road, speeding along. And out of nowhere, another car started to run down the other way, the opposite direction, straight at her. And that car hit her and her car. And it broke her back in a couple places. And she struggled with a lot of pain ever since then. And because of that accident, she had over 39 surgeries throughout the portion of her lifetime and was forced to take so many opioids and drugs just to help relieve that pain. And so that kind of led to me being born. So I was raised by two gay dads, and they really wanted a child, extremely badly. And my mom had such an amazing giving spirit that she decided that she would give one of the greatest gifts of all, a child, and help to raise me and help to give me to my dads so that they could enjoy the joy of a child. And so, by all accounts, I was a miracle. It was amazing that so much love and compassion and empathy had gone into me being on this earth. So throughout childhood, I would go up to Monroe, Washington, which is where my mom lived, every weekend. And we'd go up to the pumpkin patch every single October. I would always get to pick out a new pair of boots from Fred Meyer's. My favorite were the ones with the little bats on them, or some monster on them. It was always so much fun. And throughout those trips to Fred Meyer, we would do all sorts of different things. One of our favorite games was hide and go seek, where my mom and I would run around the store and try to hide from my other siblings, give them a little scare. And one of my favorite moments of all was during my first communion, when I was going up to the altar and the priest was giving me the blood and body of Christ, and she just looked at me dead in the eyes, and I burst out laughing and almost spit it all over the priest. Not a day to wear white robes. That's all I gotta say. Yeah, and so then as I grew up very happy in a very happy childhood, I remember one moment when I was about 8, and one of my dads was experiencing drug addiction, and he was going through an extremely rough time and going in and out of rehab. And I remember one day I was just sitting in the car and she told me that he had to go back to rehab. I remember just bawling into her lap and just letting out all of those emotions. And then came August 18th, 2014, just about 5 years ago. The sun was high up in the sky and the clouds were like buttercream frosting, just like layered over everything. And it just seemed like such a perfect day with the birds chirping. And I jumped out of bed, grabbed my iPad, and I always had this game that I love to play called Pocket Planes, which is really cool, and you can like design your own airplane empire, like Delta. Just be like, I want to build an airport in Melbourne, Australia, and my mom and I would play that all the time. So I ran downstairs, so excited to play my Pocket Planes, And I ran up to her door and started knocking on the door, waiting for her to let me in. And there was no response, so I started to do our secret notification that the other secret agent needed to be let in. So I started knocking on the door handle. And nothing happened. And I kept knocking, and nothing happened. And so I ran upstairs and grabbed the car keys and unlocked the door and walked in. And there was my mom, dead. I didn't know what to do. I called the cops, and I called my sister, my brother, and my dad, and none of them answered. And so I called my uncle, who raced over, probably got a couple of speeding violations in the way, and just gave me a huge hug. I remember that day, there was a procession of family members coming in. Got some good lasagna out of it, some pizza, all sorts of different food and hugs and cries. I remember going downstairs and just flipping on my favorite movie at the time, Mean Girls, just to get a little relief from that pain. I remember most of all, though, those people that stood by me and walked alongside me. I remember one of my grandmothers, Mumu, who she, along with another grandma, Nene, went and got me candles. And we went out to the store and picked out our perfect candle. And she told me that whenever you're just feeling so upset, you grab that candle and you light it. I also remember one of my aunts, and that night she didn't want me to sleep alone. So I went to her house and we watched the Flintstones all night, and she just held me in her arms and cuddled me. There were so many people who were there by my side, friends at school once I got back, family who took me in and just gave me a big hug and said, "That sucks, and I'm here for you." I remember the funeral and the slideshow with all of the different moments in her life, all the different moments that helped to make up who I was. I remember everyone getting up there to tell their stories of the time that she said maybe a slightly inappropriate joke, but it made the entire crowd laugh. I remember sitting on those metal chairs and during the moment of silence, letting out a ginormous fart. And all of these moments coming together. And today, I try to remember her through small things and large ways. Every day I wear a necklace that has a picture of her and her ashes in there, just to make sure that she's near me. I have my inbox. It had 65 emails the day that she died. And my inbox still has 65 emails to this day. I still call my sister every other week or so, or whoever family member I just really need to talk to, and just to talk to them about how I'm feeling that day. I remember other things that happened too, like a week after my sister, who is about 15 years older than me, she got me a notebook. And in that notebook, she told me that she was gonna be there no matter what, and that I should write in that journal every day. And even if it's just to say, I took a giant shit today, just to let out whatever feelings that I'm feeling on whatever day. Yeah, and so now. And then about 2 years after my mom died by suicide, my school was also devastated by suicide of its own. A popular senior at our school ended his life as well. And I just remember walking into school that day and it just being a giant fog of sadness. And nobody knew where to turn or what exactly to do. And so my friend Taylor Creed Benton and I decided that we were sick and tired of this continuing to happen. Currently in the state of Washington, two teenagers die by suicide every single week. 2 school communities are devastated each and every single week. And so we decided that we needed to work on especially teen suicides, as suicide in teenagers is the second leading cause for teenage death. And so we founded an organization called The Other 6. And The Other 6 comes out of the fact that for every single death by suicide, at least 6 people are intimately affected. And with newer statistics that are coming out, we're finding that even on top of those 6 that are intimately affected, it's hundreds more individuals that are devastated by each of these suicides. And so our goal is to help those people that are left behind, those people like me who have lost a loved one to suicide. And so in the 3 years since founding, we're working on a lot of things. Like, we have 2 main programs that are up and running right now. We have a support group. Currently in the state of Washington, there are only 8 support groups that help people who have lost someone to suicide. But of those 8, none of them help teenagers. None of them allow teenagers in there. So we need to be making sure that we're letting teens talk to other teens. And then we're also working on our ambassadors program, which is where we're getting teenagers trained in how to talk to other teenagers about suicide and making sure that we're having teens in those schools who can direct other teens to those different areas. It's so important that we not only get teens talking to other teens, but teens talking to adults that are trained, adults in their communities, adults who can help them through those suicides and whatever grief or death that they might be experiencing. And so that's really the thing. The thing that helped me through my mom's death by suicide is the community around me and the people who helped to lift me up. And I think that's so important that as well as helping prevent suicides, we need to be there if a suicide does happen and be there to help lift up our communities. And that's so incredibly important. Thank you so incredibly much.